Hello, Slashies. Welcome to Slashed, a horror podcast, the place where we talk about the scares, the screams, and the spooky stuff. I'm Grace.
And my name's Wouter.
Today we're going to talk about Midsommar.
Yeah, Midsommar is definitely one of our favorite horror films and favorite films of all time. And we felt it was a really good one to talk about because horror in general is a really visceral film experience and is therefore a good vehicle to talk about visceral themes, and Midsommar definitely falls into that category. So without further ado, Grace is going to give us a nice little synopsis.
Yes. So Midsommar is a 2019 folk horror film produced by A24 Films and directed by Ari Aster, whom you might know from Hereditary. The film follows Dani, an American student played by Florence Pugh, while she struggles with the loss of her parents and her sister in a murder-suicide plot. To take her mind off things, Dani tacks along with her unsupportive boyfriend Christian and his friends to a rare midsummer festival in Sweden. Each boy has his own reasons for travelling there. Mark is eager to hook up with the Swedish girls, Josh is writing his thesis on the festival, and Pelle, the organizer of the trip, is going there to be reunited with his family, as he grew up in the commune. As soon as they arrive, the group is handed hallucinogens, which they continue to take regularly throughout their stay in the village, both voluntarily and involuntarily, as most food and drink seems to be laced with them. It becomes clear that the festival is actually a pagan ritual that centers around sacrifice and renewal, starting almost immediately with a ritual in which the village elders commit suicide because, according to the village, they had completed their life cycle. The group is soon torn apart by the cult. Mark disappears with one of the village girls, while Josh comes to a nasty end after he's caught photographing the cult's sacred scriptures. Dani and Christian's already strained relationship deteriorates as Christian pays less and less attention to Dani and more to Maya, one of the cult girls who is seen putting a spell on him. A love spell. Pelle moves in on Dani and implies she would be better off with him in the cult. The film comes to a climax when Dani, under the influence of yet more psychedelic drugs, wins the Maypole dancing competition and becomes the May Queen. At the same time, Christian is coerced into a sex ritual and impregnates Maya. Dani catches them and breaks down. All the other women in the cult seem to feel her pain. This is when Dani fully embraces her role within the community and cuts off her last connection to the outside world. The film ends with Dani on the throne, fully decked out in Main Queen floors and ready to perform the final ritual of the festival. Dani gets to decide who the final sacrifice will be and, unsurprisingly, chooses Christian. Christian is then put inside of a disemboweled bear carcass and burnt alive in the sacred temple with, among others, the dead bodies of Mark and Josh. The surviving cult members scream and wail along with the sacrifices, Dani among them, who seemingly has some newfound inner peace.
Yeah, thank you for that lovely synopsis. And now we're going to dig into basically the long synopsis where we talk about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this film, I've been looking forward to watching this film for so long.
Yeah.
I'd seen, like, you don't really watch trailers, but I'd watched the trailer probably like 20 times just when it had come out. I hadn't seen Hereditary, I didn't know Ari Aster, but this is a horror film I knew I would like because I hate jump scares and I hate dark stuff. Like, I'm really scared of the dark, and this is like broad daylight horror film. Like, everything is shot in broad daylight because it takes place in sort of this midsummer festival, so it's like daylight for most of the day and sometimes for the entire day. I think that's the point. So I was like, yeah, I'm on board with this. I can manage this. And the trailer doesn't really beat around the bush either, because it like makes it fairly explicit that it is about a cult and that it's about sacrifice and stuff. So I like it when the trailer is that upfront about things, because then it leaves you wondering what else the movie has to offer. Because if the
I avoid trailers because of that very reason. Like, if I know there's an interesting director or I kind of know it's an interesting story, then I'd rather go see the film and completely be surprised by it, and that it's amazing, or see the film and be like, okay, well, I guess it's not that good, right? Rather than feeling like I've seen the highlights of the film already in the trailer. But what I do think is really, really great about this film is, on one hand, the aesthetic, as you said.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. It's so beautiful. Like, all the clothes are beautiful. Like, the white dresses, the florals. Like, how they made those, like, white floral clothing look scary is just... That's some talent right there.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. The design is definitely off the charts on that, because everything is so calculated.
Yeah.
Clearly, like we'll go into that a little bit, like how everything just falls into place and everything has been like well thought out visually as well.
Yeah, like for instance, Danny's clothes really. She's wearing really baggy clothes throughout the film, which, you know, she hasn't been really doing well mentally, and they're traveling a lot, so those are both quite obvious reasons why you might not want to dress up and just wear really comfy clothes.
Yeah.
But they do look. None of the clothes that she wears looks like they fit her until she's given one of the dresses of the village, and it just fits her like a glove.
Yeah.
And it just, those things, they just really tie in so nicely.
Yeah, but the thing about like it fitting like a glove is like obviously a nice symbolic nod that the film does, and it does really well, but it's also like underscoring one of the creepy parts of the film, which is that clearly Pelle, the one who's led them there,
Was coming,
knew she was coming and knew her sizes, which is even more fucked up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Pelle is my favorite character in the film by far. He is like apart from Danny, of course, because she is amazing. But Pelle is really cool because he is the most inconspicuous, nicest, like soft-spoken Swedish guy.
Yeah.
And he is super sweet to Danny, and he's like kind of bro with Christian and Mark and Josh. But he is like one of the top dogs in the cult, clearly, because he's involved in like most of the rituals, and he seems like one of the main talking points to both the cult and the tourists, because he seems to be one of the only ones who speaks English as well as Swedish.
I'm not sure. I think they were trying to go for this idea that they kind of had missionaries.
Yeah.
Because you had the other guys.
Ingemar.
Who kind of had the same role as Pelle, just wasn't as good at it. Yeah. So I'm not sure about that, but yeah, he was definitely very charismatic, and I feel like I know now that he's trying to get people into an evil cult, and I still would be nice to him and probably still want to go to the Swedish festival with him, because he just seems so sweet and genuine, because he does genuinely believe that Danny will be better off with the cult, and I don't know, like
initially he's probably right. Yeah.
I mean, Christian, you know, like I said in the synopsis, like, oh, their strained relationship, which I think was even being nice to Christian, probably.
Yeah.
Because throughout the movie he's so unsupportive of her, and basically from the first time that he's introduced, he wants to break up with Danny, or at least he's really pressured into it by his friends, but he's just it's like he can't be bothered to even do that. Like it's easier to have a girlfriend that you neglect than not having a girlfriend, apparently.
Yeah. And apparently according to his friends, not having a girlfriend is not cool, because if she's in need of support, obviously she's the crazy one.
Yeah.
Like why would you support your partner? That's not a dude thing to do.
I do think it was done in a realistic way.
Oh, defo, yeah.
Like so because Danny's sister was at such a low point. Yeah. Danny was constantly seeking out Christian and being like, okay, I need your support right now. She's not doing well, I'm freaking out. And that can be a lot on a person.
Yeah, that's very demanding for a relationship.
Yeah, and like it's, of course, Danny should be able to look to Christian for that support, but it can also kind of understand his point of view, where it's like, you need a kind of support that I can't give you. Just like Danny probably can't give the support to his sister that she needs.
Yeah.
Because that's just not something that you can do if you're not like a trained psychiatrist. But then the way that he responds to that and he goes from there, that's wrong.
Yeah, because either you should just be upfront and say, I can't deal with this is too much for me, I'm going to choose my own way.
I can't help you in the way that you need and deserve to be helped.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he doesn't do that because he's weak.
Yeah.
He's
very passive.
Passive, yeah, which is also like emphasized by the end of the film, where he basically just gets drugged out of his mind more and more and more, and just becomes like almost a literal puppet, and just sort of goes along with everything because he doesn't care, and he's just numb.
Even when he's like in the bear suit, he's not screaming, he's not crying, he's just numb. And
but I think that is probably symbolic, but I think that is also because he just can't move. Like they've paralyzed. I think they're going. What I got from it is that they poisoned him in such a way that he can't move or speak, but he can feel.
Oh, because I thought they said something like "don't scream" or something.
No, they said
like, oh, don't scream, you can't move, and you just have to deal with that or something.
No, I think that was just them taunting him, like, oh, you can't move or speak.
Okay.
Don't scream though.
Yeah.
They were kind of being dicks to him, but like to be fair, because they clearly the whole cult hated him.
Yeah. Oh, I hated that moment in the film where they were basically there, like, from the friend group perspective, they were mostly there because Josh was writing his thesis on Midsommar festivals, and then him just being like, hey, I'm also going to write my thesis on this, like, can we share? When Josh had been working so much on it, was completely his thing, and Christian was just...
Which is also thinking, maybe like touching upon a very like poignant sort of social issue, because just to be clear, Josh is a person of color. He's like one of the only people of color, because I think the British couple, Connie and Simon, are also people of color, but like Josh is the one of the main characters.
He's played by William Jackson Harper, who also played Chidi in The Good Place, where he was just a ray of sunshine and please protect him at all costs.
Yes.
Which made it very hard for me to not like him in Midsommar, even though the film clearly did not want me to like him that much.
Yeah, but like the thing with like his thesis and like Christian sort of going like, oh, but I want to do my thesis on this as well. Like, can't you just share your knowledge? That's a bit of sort of cultural appropriation commentary there, I feel.
Yeah.
So if like just taking credit for something that a person of color has done, and pretending it's just sharing when you know that he's going to take full credit of it as if it was his own idea. Yeah. So I think that's a really... And there's just little simple touches that are not really the main tone of the film, but like the I appreciate that they put that in there, because like you think it's like that's the thing, like it's a horror film, you don't have to put that in there, you can just do slash murder, but I like that like this film it goes the extra mile and takes the time to add that little extra layer in there.
Because you can see that Girls from the Village interested in both Christian and Mark, and very much not in Josh.
Yeah.
And, you know, the cult... I mean, it's not even implied, right? It's just explicit that there is incest going on there.
Yeah, like, exactly, yeah.
In the character of Reuben, who is their, sort of like their priest...
Prophet.
Well, not priest, prophet, yeah. And he's, disabled.
Heavily disabled boy.
Yeah. And they basically say that they inbreed a child.
Mm-hmm.
So he is very disabled, and that would make him more open to whatever the gods want.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read some stuff about the director really being like, showing that, you know, very like patriotic, well, not patriotic, but like nasty nationalism about your own ethnicity. Like, this is what it leads to. That leads to inbreeding, that leads to people have disabilities that are really, really hard to live with. And it's not traditions that you should be pursuing. And I think you kind of see that where the cult was interested in new blood in a way, but they were very much definitely only interested in the white boys.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think in terms of Josh, they were just literally only interested in his blood from the get-go. Because I think he gets the most unceremonious, like, okay, all of them die except for Danny, that is, and Pele, I guess, but he's not part of the group. But he gets one of the most unceremonious deaths, I feel, because he gets whacked. Josh, yeah, for sure. Because he gets whacked in the back of the head with a giant mallet, and technically he's still alive when he takes the brunt to the head, because you can hear him doing like death snores, where he's actually like choking on his own tongue. And then later you see when Danny's running through a field, you see his feet sticking out of the ground. So I think the implication is there that they buried him still slightly alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is definitely like, and they couldn't even bother to bury him fully because his feet are still sticking out. So he's clearly just fertilizer to them, because there's sort of a theme throughout the film that like prosperity and giving and taking back from nature and really celebrating the harvest and that sort of thing.
the film did want to address kind of race issues, but then never really
picked up on them again.
Yeah, never really took it all the way, which if I had to pick like a teeny tiny flaw in the film, then I would say that I feel like they handled that a bit carelessly, because I feel like either you leave it out or you address it really well and not just like kind of sprinkle it in there and then be like, that is good now.
Yeah,
because there were definitely a lot of like implications, but that they just didn't really,
which I agree with, and I feel like leaving it out would have been the better option here, because because it's also like not. I read a review just now before we started, like by a guy in the Variety. I can't bother to look at his name anymore. Who said that I lost my thought. Where were we going with this? The race thing. Yeah. That it picks up on themes that it doesn't complete, or the director's ambition exceeds the result or something like that. Yeah. And I think this was a good example, because the side characters all like really flat, and that's kind of fine, because they're supposed to be sort of these very caricature images of toxic masculinity. So it's fine if they're kind of flat and if they kind of fall to the sideline a little bit, and just let it be Danny's story. And I think it would have been fine to cut the whole racial subtext a little bit in favor of showing more of Danny's story, which actually is sort of circling to one of my gripes with the film, is that I feel...
We're not saying cast a white actor, by the way.
No. Like, have Josh in there for like... But one of my gripes with the film, or like if I had to pick a gripe, because I think it's just a brilliant film, is that Pele is kind of underused, I feel, because there's actually this really fun, like the opening shot of the film is this really cool mural of like, that's clearly like hand painted with like brushes and pastels and stuff. And it basically spoils the whole film. Yeah. Like every panel is like basically the storyboard of the film. And there's this really fun panel where you can see the whole crew, like Danny, Christian, Mark, and Josh, and then Pelle is leading them into the garden, and he's dressed as the Pied Piper, which is really fun. But then the film kind of drops that ball halfway through. Like Pelle is like sort of sitting next to Danny the whole time, and then sort of dropping hints here and there. Yeah. But then as soon as the story starts to revolve around like Josh and Christian a little bit, then Pelle sort of disappears, and I guess you can have the implication that, oh, while Christian is off doing this thing, Pelle is talking to Danny. Yeah. But I want to see more of Pelle influencing all of them. Like, have a little scene where Josh says, oh, by the way, Pelle, thank you for giving me the idea to do my thesis on this topic, you know, because maybe...
I think that's in there.
Is that in there?
There are scenes like that, but...
Yeah, well...
I agree with you in general that he does kind of disappear, and it's such an interesting character to really like think of. And I definitely think they went for having the kind of boy group as like forms of like toxic masculinity. Yeah. Where Christian is kind of that, you know, you have to repress your feelings. Talking about feelings that's not manly, so that's why he won't comfort Danny. Yeah. And kind of trying to be this very stoic person. And you have Mark, who's kind of like the gross, like horned dog, who's just like, let's impregnate some
the Chad ladies. Basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have Josh, who I think what they were going for was to kind of have him mansplain almost the cult's own culture to them.
Back to them, yeah.
Yeah, which they were clearly not happy with.
No.
And then I suppose what Pelle is like the kind of like knighting Danny a little bit.
Yeah, he's a groomer.
Oh God. Well.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's literally a groomer.
That makes it bad.
Yeah, and a stalker as well, because like coming back to the dress thing, he clearly figured out her dress sizes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like he had like a drawing of her, which definitely didn't look like a drawing which you can do in like 2 minutes.
No. Oh, dude, that is such a good point. Like
where she was already wearing like the May Queen,
the flower crown
headdress. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a theory that Pelle was also behind the murder suicide of her sister and her parents,
Yeah.
because there's a flower crown next to the parents' bed.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely seemed like the sister was being influenced by something or someone to do this.
Should we go into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So you've probably seen this film, so you know this.
Yeah, we're just gonna do a little content warning here. Just
this is gonna get
graphic. Very graphic.
So the way that the sister commits suicide is by taping the exhaustion.
The exhaust, a hose to the exhaust of the car.
Yeah.
And then funneling it through her parents' house.
Yeah.
Into their bedroom, so that they choke in their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then the shot. So that's what you see first, and then the shot pans to her with another hose
taped to her mouth.
To her mouth, yeah.
Which is a horrific image, but it's also, as people have been saying online, a very unconventional way of committing suicide.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely looks more like someone else taped it to her.
Yeah.
Because she could have also just gone to sleep.
Yeah, and I think you can also kind of see, now that I'm thinking back on it, that you can see that like her shirt is kind of wet and her eyes are kind of red, which sort of suggested she'd like been maybe throwing up or gagging because it was forced down her throat. And yeah, that's why I think that's sort of, now that I'm thinking back on it, that's sort of the image that like pops in my mind.
There's also you actually caught that when we were watching it, but when Danny is walking, when she's just been crowned and they're kind of walking in this parade, and then in the background you can see the trees and it looks like a girl with an exhaust pipe stuck to her mouth.
Yeah, there's multiple shots like that actually. There's also one when they're driving to the Haggis, which is what the festival is called. You can see it in the tree line as well. And you can also see it when Danny is like bad tripping on mushrooms, and then she opens like a medicine cabinet, and when she closes it, there's the classic horror shot of like her sister in the mirror.
I think that one can still be explained like, oh, that is just her mind.
Just tripping, yeah.
Tripping, but like, it felt like the other images were definitely implying that, well, like for one, that Danny was also being kind of led to the slaughter. Yeah. Like his sister was. But also that there's a connection between that death and the cult.
Yeah, it's all predetermined.
Yeah, like they gave her this trauma so she wouldn't have any like connection anymore except for Christian, and be more eager to come on that trip and be easier to influence.
Yeah, but also like it's kind of really painfully symbolic in a way that the trauma has basically becomes Danny's whole life. Yeah. And it's subconsciously everywhere she goes. Yeah. So even though she's in the final stage of putting it behind her, because this is like the penultimate scene, it's still there, even if it's just for a moment. Yeah.
This is slightly unrelated, but I just wanted to say that, especially in the beginning of the film, there's so many really gorgeous cuts. Yeah. So like there's this one where Danny's having a panic attack because Pele brought up her trauma and he was trying to relate to it, but she just wasn't ready to talk about it at all. And she goes to the bathroom, and when she comes out of the bathroom, she's in the plane, and they're already on their way
that's so good,
to Sweden. And there's a few of those shots, especially in the beginning. And also one that we kept commenting on when we were watching it was there's a lot of shots where they're you see someone, for instance, sitting on a sofa, and you see the person they're talking to in the mirror behind them. So they're both in the shot, but one only in a reflection, and it just shows how much distance there is between Danny and the people that, well, Christian, the person that's supposed to be a support system.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I found, like when looking back at one of the scenes, was actually really interesting. There's this really cool theme of like Scandinavian, like ancient Scandinavian ritualism in the film, because the cult is basically like a whole bunch of Nordic mythological religious things cobbled together. Like there's a bit of Viking stuff in there. There's a bit of sort of ritual paganism
with
in
the
there.
blood eagle.
Yeah, exactly. It was sort of what it's moving towards, and there's a lot of like bodily dismemberment things as well, like sacrifice things. And the blood eagle is one thing, because the British guy Simon gets killed via blood eagle, and he's sort of strung up, and Grace is wincing on the other side of the table. So
honestly, I'm wincing more because it happened in a chicken coop.
Grace is. This is going to be a common theme throughout the film, so we get out of the way now. Grace is terrified of birds, so now we got that elephant out of the room. He is blood eagled, which is of course a very. Should I quickly explain?
Let's just say it's a really, really brutal Viking torture.
Torture and eventually death
where they
ritual.
Basically turn you inside out.
Yeah, and
that's kind of the short.
Make you look like you have wings, basically.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how. Google it yourselves.
You've seen the movie.
Yeah. So there's that in there, but then there's also this. Well, it's not a fun scene, but it's a really fun nod, I feel, and I hope it's intentional. There's a scene which Grace talked about, where Josh goes to photograph the holy book, the Ruby Rada. And then while he's taking photographs, a figure emerges in the background, again in the mirror, which is a kind of fun little nod to the beginning of the film. And at first he thinks it's Mark, whom we haven't seen for 20 minutes at that point. So we know Mark's dead.
Movie time.
Yeah, exactly. So we know Mark's dead, but Josh doesn't yet. But then the figure sort of steps into the light, and Josh for a split second can see that it's not actually Mark, but it's somebody wearing Mark's face as a mask, because there's this thing in the film where they were singing Skin the Fool, and Mark was definitely acting like a fool, so they skinned him, maybe alive, we don't know, that's not shown, and then the dude is wearing his face as a mask, but he's also, if you look closely, wearing his legs and penis and scrotum over his own legs.
No.
You can actually see that in the shot.
No.
Yeah, and that is actually a old Icelandic ritual which I have here. I'm going to try to pronounce it correct. It's called Norbrok, which is literally necropants. And it's really, it's not fun, but it's really interesting. And basically the thing is...
Crypt of the Necropancer.
Crypt of the Necropancer. It's a really fun game where you just steal people's penis. No, the rituals, like traditionally, is that a friend of yours gives you consent to skin his legs and penis after he dies.
Okay.
Yeah. After he dies, and then you have to wear them over your own legs. After which they immediately get stuck to you. Then you have to steal an old widow's coin and put it in the sack. And from that point on, as long as the original coin is in there, the sack will produce infinite coins. Which is nice, but the pants are still stuck to you and you can't get them off until somebody else agrees to take them over. But I think that's really, and I hope they're going for it, because that's really, again, really nicely tying into sort of that theme of sort of appropriating and setting forth this like really traditional sense of like Scandinavian culture, but on the other hand sort of playing into the theme of prosperity and sort of taking and giving to nature. Like he took Mark's Narbrok and he hopes that nature will give him something back for that, namely gold.
It's also so the Ruby Rada?
Ruby Rada, yeah.
Yeah. So that's, like we said before, that's written by Ruben. And I think what the film is going for is you basically see that there's runes in there and then Ruben who's just like kind of drawing over it.
Yeah.
And that seems that the elders are like, well, he's the only one that can kind of communicate with the gods. We can only try to interpret it, but like clearly they can't because it's just drawings. And I really felt like the person playing Ruben played them looking so sad and intelligent. Yeah. And I felt like it, to me, this seemed like a person who saw the cult for what it was and couldn't communicate that.
Yeah.
And it was sort of this I felt like that is what maybe the film also was about, misinterpretation of tradition and ritual.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's just, we take everything that's in the bag and we'll just see what comes up, and you end up with these horrific rituals and these horrific traditions that really should just should go. We should take the good things from our past, but still look at them critically. And they're not doing that. They're just holding on to everything.
Yeah, exactly. And then like a fun little nugget of knowledge like the Norbrook suddenly turns into, if like nobody in their right mind would like imagine doing that.
And then it works.
Yeah, exactly. But like taking it too literally. Yeah, that definitely, like what you said, like taking religion, tradition, and also like with the purity and the sort of incest and that sort of thing, like taking all that traditionality too seriously is definitely one of the main things that the film is going for.
I really want to see if we can get our hands on another cut of the film, because I know that there were more scenes with Ruben and where he talks to Danny as well, and I really want to see those.
Oh, I was actually kind of ashamed because I liked that he doesn't talk. Because like, also, folks on the internet were saying that he is I think you meant as well, like he's just he's not just randomly drawing on the book, but he's crossing things out.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's cool that he, and sad, even more sad if he really can't talk, that is his only means of communication. And I think having him talk is kind of, for me, would ruin that illusion.
I feel like that might be why they cut it, but still, I just want to see more what they were going for, and I feel like I don't know what the scene is about because I want to see it. I don't want to read it.
No.
But I feel like it probably is going to be a bit about him being like, get out, basically, to Danny.
Apparently the director's cut box is supposed to be really gorgeous. Like, it comes with
like an art
prints. Exactly. Yeah.
I really want to get that. Well, there's one thing that I still wanted to talk about, and it's actually something that I wanted to bring up in the beginning, and then we kind of sidetracked, which is when we were talking about the trailer, and you said that you really liked that it was quite straightforward. I like that too about the film. Like, as soon as the people get to that cult, someone's going to get sacrificed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just the writing's literally on the wall, because there's loads of drawings and which basically spoil the film if you pay attention.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's just not really what the film is about. Like, I think in the end, the main storyline of the film is just Danny and Christian's breakup. And I think that's just an interesting thing to take this horror movie and be like, the death is inevitable. It's coming. Because if you would build up that whole film and we would just be like, when is the sacrifice? And that'd be the only thing that you'd be interested in, would be a rubbish film.
Yeah, and I think if...
sorry.
Yeah, can you continue?
I just want to say, but by doing this and kind of holding on to that emotional core, I think it's much stronger. And I also think it turns it into this kind of really twisted, like, feminist fairy tale.
Yeah,
almost.
I was going to say the same thing. It's a fairy tale. Like, and it's also a little bit more of a classic sort of, more of the gritty, like, Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales where it's, like, people just die. It's not the princess and the prince live happily ever after. No, the princess gets to live happily ever after prince burns alive.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking about like Hans Christian Andersen, who, for anyone who's kind of into fairy tales, you probably know this. Like, The Little Mermaid is basically the story about him not being able to be with the person he loved because they were both men, and then the person he loved was already going to marry a woman, and that's really what The Little Mermaid is about. It's about the love that dare not speak its name. So sorry, I was just thinking about The Little Mermaid, but with a bear.
the Little Mermaid with bears.
Yeah. No, it's definitely that fairy tale, that last moment where she's just wearing this fantastically gorgeous, monstrous fairy tale flower gown with the crown and everything. Yeah. And it's just that wailing, that agony of having gone through that relationship and the pain of losing that person and the relief of losing that person and the joy of finding this community that feels what you feel and that does have empathy.
Yeah.
It feels so much like a happy ending.
Yeah, and it even like ends on the slight smile with Danny, and also I like to think like because that dress looks heavy as shit. You can see that she can barely walk in it. Like she sort of really has to drag it along. And can you just imagine like after that shot she gets to take it off and then leaves all the past behind as she takes off that heavy ass dress and then she just gets to frolic in like a little white gown.
Yeah. Good on her.
Good on her. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I thought it was really cool. Because there's always that undertone where, like, well, this is not a happy ending.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to really root for these people, like, at least not for the cult, because it is, at the end, just some really messed up shit. And it's clearly the film wants to make clear that this is not okay. But it's just such a nice, well-rounded emotional journey for Danny that I do, like... If you do, that's the beauty of this film. If you don't take it as a horror film, but take it as the story of Danny dealing with her trauma and with I'm not going to say abusive, but toxic, unhealthy relationship. Yeah. Then it is suddenly a really just intriguing visual experience of that.
And it works so well together.
Yeah, definitely.
It reminded me. I think it reminded us a lot of The Witch, or as we call it, the Vivitch. Yeah. Where you also kind of had that not happy ending. We'll talk about that some other time, so we'll definitely go into it now. But I will say that I feel like whatever the Vivitch was trying to accomplish, Midsommar did it just a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah, definitely. I've run out of points to talk. I have been recommending this film to everyone I've run into, and it is so hard to describe it without making it sound weird. It's like, oh, well, yeah, it's about these people who go to like this Swedish festival, and it's all super nice and bright, but also people die. Yeah. And then they do get stuffed in a bear, and but it's really good though.
Because I keep telling people it's not that scary, because I didn't find it scary. I found it tense. Yeah. But then when I went back and like wrote the synopsis, and which was hard enough as it is, because it's quite a detailed film. Yeah. Where I feel like lots of those little things matter, and you can't mention it all. But going back over, I was like, man, a lot of really nasty, mess up, quite visually grotesque things do happen. Yeah. While it also being such a pretty film. Like, for instance, the ritual at the beginning.
Yeah, I was looking up the name.
Where, like, the two village elders commit suicide, and then one of them literally misses the mark. Yeah. And they kind of have to bludgeon him to death with a big mallet. Like, that was quite gory.
The Ättestupa, if I'm pronouncing that right.
So it definitely it belongs in the horror genre, like definitely. But it's not a scary film in that it's jump scares or that it does anything like that. It's just really tense. But it's
Oh dang! Okay, I just looked up the word Ättestupa, like with the sorry if I interrupt you.
No worries.
Where the old people sacrifice themselves, and it actually says here the name supposedly denotes sites where ritual sannicide, so the killing of elders, took place during Nordic prehistoric times. So that's again going back to sort of this like really old rituals, but yeah, Ättestupa.
What did the name mean?
Clan precipice.
Oh, okay. I thought you were really shocked by the name.
No. But I was just reading the description that Wikipedia just gave me, and it's like, oh, okay. It actually really means is like.
This was the thing that happened.
This is supposedly an ancient ritual. Yeah.
Okay. I think we
should wrap up. Yeah.
We should wrap up. It was just a great film. So I hope it made for a great first episode. And we will see you guys. Well, you guys will hear us in the next episode.
Yeah, and be sure to leave any comments or thoughts on the film. Reach out to us, and if we see something we like, we might touch on it in the next episode. Who knows?
If there's anything you feel like we missed, or just something that you really wanted to bring into the conversation as well, please do comment that. And if there's any film that you would love us to talk about next time, definitely comment that as well.
Yes, and find us on Instagram and Twitter under /_horror.
Yes.
I've been Wouter.
I've been Grace, and you've been slashed.
It's like that.